Good afternoon, everybody. On this Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, I have all your stories for your rush hour ride home. And on today's episode, more conversation around these astronauts that were shot into space on the Blue Origin rocket. That's Jeff Bezos' rocket. Well, Emily Ratajkowski is going hard in the paint. I'll share what she says about why this isn't the win people are trying to make it out to be. Plus, Sam Neill discusses bagging his own groceries and why he takes a stand not to do so. He's my new hero. I'll share that. Plus also, Justin Baldoni has a letter to the judge. What does it say? Well, stick around. You'll find out. And Ukraine has offered to buy missiles from the U.S., pay fair market value, and I'm going to share the response from our supreme leader as to whether or not that's going to go down, and more on the Fight Oligarchy tour as 12,000 Iowans packed into an arena to hear AOC and Bernie Sanders speak in a ruby red state. People show up to fight the powers that be. Very inspirational. And then more on immigration, the idea that we may be sending American citizens to prisons abroad and lack of due process, all of that conversation. And the brave senator that says they'll be going to El Salvador to take matters into their own hands. All these stories and more, it's all coming up right now on The Rush. Well, I've got a new hero. His name's Sam Neill, star of Jurassic Park and many other movies, says, I don't care what you think of me. I'm not scanning my own groceries. Let's listen to this.
Call me old-fashioned.
You're old-fashioned.
Thank you. But I refuse to check out my own groceries at a supermarket. I want a human being to assist me.
Thank you.
I don't think that's too much to ask. And every time I check out something for myself, you've got to think of this. I'm doing someone out of a job. And if robots and self-serving are going to do all the work everywhere, who's going to be buying the groceries at the checkout? Think about that. It's an old-fashioned question, but it's a legitimate one, I think.
Now, yeah, he's got such a great point here, right? This is the problem with automation, is they get rid of all of these employees, but they don't pass the buck on to me. I'm not getting a 20% discount for, checking myself out. I got to go to Home Depot and grab one of those scanner machines and start scanning all of my products. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the people at Aldi's, right? We always loved Aldi's, but now Aldi's, they'll literally have somebody stocking shelves and keeping an eye on the grocery line so that they can maybe go in and go out. Now listen, if you want to scan your own groceries, God bless you. Go ahead. But I demand every grocery store have at least one or several people working the checkout line. We want human interactions. We want to talk. I don't need to know what type of potatoes I bought. Just ring them up. Do your job, right? And again, like I said, what's going to happen when all of these jobs are taken over? The auto industry, transportation. Right now it's grocery checkout, but the next thing it's going to be like, and what are we supposed to do? Stick our thumb up our ass? No. People want to go to work. They want to work hard. So I support Sam Neill here. And by the way, I hate to say it, but if you're checking out your own groceries, take a few extra things. What are you doing? I'm not telling you to steal. I'm saying they're stealing your time. They're stealing your time by you working for them. So grab an extra bushel of potatoes. It's on me. All right, here's Emily Ratajkowski. No blurred lines here as she takes a stance against the billionaire class and says, why are we supporting this PR stunt sending a bunch of people into space? She shared thoughts yesterday, and now she's going hard in the paint. Have a listen.
Okay, I'm back. I have more to say. I think that this space mission is confusing to people because seeing women and people of color in spaces like science and politics that have not previously included them feels and really looks like, optically, looks like progress. But the truth is that having a man who has gained his power and become a part of the 1% purely through exploitation and greed.
Jeff Bezos.
Deciding to take his fiance and a few other famous women to space for space tourism is not progress. Instead, just speaks to the fact that we are absolutely living in an oligarchy where there is a very small group of people who are interested in going to space for the sake of getting a new lease on life, while the rest of the population, most people on planet Earth, are worried about paying rent or, having dinner for their kids.
I agree. There needs to be some sort of rocket law, which is you don't get to shoot rockets into space until we get homelessness below a critical level. First-time home buyers have the chance to get into their homes. And you might say, well, but if he's a private citizen, he can do whatever he wants. Well, then he's clearly not being taxed enough if he has an extra $50 billion laying around. That's my thought. And, I don't know anyone with a rational brain that's not a billionaire that doesn't feel the same way unless you've been brainwashed into thinking this is a good thing for science. Why? So we can see Katy Perry, float in air for a few minutes and claim that this is a good moment for STEM? I don't buy it. And I'm glad people are speaking out. Well, more info coming out on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. He, of course, was the victim of arson at his house. An attacker came in and tried to attack him with a hammer, and ended up lighting his house on fire during Passover. Well, now we're finding out that the governor actually possibly saved the lives of not only his family, but the guests that were staying at his house by closing off some doors as they were sort of exiting and keeping the fire from being spread. A real heroic moment for an otherwise horrifying story. I mean, the fact that we are able to report on this story as a sort of victory for him to overcome this is so much better than the alternative, which is political violence almost killed one of our governors and their family. Wild indeed. So again, another just reminder that we need to calm down the rhetoric and do something about what's happening in society, which people are going mad. Well, speaking of which, egg prices have skyrocketed, so you got to check out your own eggs, and they're expensive. Well, here's the annual tradition of rolling Easter eggs across the South Lawn is proceeding this year despite the egg shortage, and they're going to use real eggs. Have a listen.
This Easter, the White House is choosing to use real eggs instead of fake ones. This decision, despite the national shortage of real eggs.
They were saying that for Easter, please don't use eggs. Could you use plastic eggs? I said, we don't want to do that.
We're not going to use plastic eggs. The woke plastic eggs, not going to happen. Real eggs, well, they scrambled to find eggs in this economy. Oh, just yoking.
This egg roll will feature 30,000 real eggs for guests to decorate and then use in the games. 30,000 eggs, or 2,500 dozen, is the normal amount used in previous years. The Egg Board has provided the eggs for this event for years. They often rely on donations from farmers across the country. But this year, we're told that the board had several internal conversations about the optics of using tens of thousands of real eggs, given how the bird flu has burdened egg farmers and contributed to high prices.
All right, so the optics aside, they're going with real eggs. They're not going to use the woke plastic eggs. So there it is. There. Are you happy, folks? Anyone out there celebrating? And by the way, who's rolling Easter eggs? When my childhood, they would use the plastic Easter eggs and they'd stuff a couple chocolates in there. And now I have a food addiction. That's basically how it works. My mom and that whole generation, thank you, boomers. God bless you guys. Let us put sugar in our cereal. So now I can't walk by a Reese's Pieces bunny on an Easter egg hunt without getting triggered and needing to eat a whole plate of pancakes. Hey, life comes at you fast, but I guess that's just my fault. I should have known better at the age of 5 not to eat a gallon of oatmeal every day. Okay, I had to wear a t-shirt at the pool. That's on me, folks. I guess I learned my lesson. So if anyone's wondering why my son won't be having sugar in his birthday cake, that's why. I'm gonna have to make him some sort of I don't know. How do you make a healthy cake for your baby? I don't want him to have the same complex as I have. Next thing you know, he's gonna be a podcaster. We don't need that in this world. Okay, so enjoy your stinking eggs. Who cares? Today's podcast is sponsored by Ancient Nutrition. For over 1,000 years, explorers the world over searched for and told tales of a mythical fountain said to restore one's youth and cure anything. Newsflash, it was never found. But hey, we do have collagen. While it's not a miracle, it is proven to be pretty darn good at helping you look and feel younger and more healthy. What's the best collagen, you ask? Well, it's made by Ancient Nutrition, of course. This formula is powered by clinically studied ingredients that promote fat loss and healthy weight management, as well as building lean muscle. Collagen can also reduce joint discomfort and improve the look and growth of your skin, hair, and nails. You know me, I'm a hair guy. Turning 40, I'm fighting father time. 1 scoop in the morning with a smoothie, that's all it takes. Right now, Ancient Nutrition is offering 25% off your first order when you go to ancientnutrition.com/rush-hour. That's ancientnutrition.com/rush-hour for 25% off your first order. ancientnutrition.com/rush-hour. As you know, we've been covering the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case. Earlier today, I made a separate non-podcast video. So if you're listening audio only, go to YouTube for that. And we covered Jennifer Abel and Joneswork. The Joneswork is the PR company that Jennifer Abel worked at that was able to crack down and find all of the text messages that proved that, or that they thought proved that there was this conspiracy to smear Blake Lively. Well, we already shared all of that. And now we're going to share the counsel for Wayfair Studios and what they had to say to the judge today. This is breaking hot news. It's not super salacious, but we're following the beat on the story. Dear Judge Lyman, as counsel for Wayfair Studios, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Sarowitz, it ends with us, Melissa Nathan, the agency group, and Jennifer Abel, collectively the Wayfair parties. We write to notify the court that the Wayfair parties do not intend to move for leave to amend their pleading by the April 18th deadline set forth in the case management plan and scheduling order. The Wayfair parties stand behind the operative first amended complaint and are confident that for the reasons outlined in their opposition briefs, the currently pending motions to dismiss will be denied. If the court were to grant one or more of the motions to any extent, the Wayfair parties will move for leave to amend pursuant to the federal laws. So they basically are saying, we're good. We like what we wrote. You ever have a teacher say, do you want to check any of your answers before you submit the final? Nope. They say, we got it. We're happy with what we have. So now it's, I guess, the ball's in the judge's court. We're going to find out what they're going to dismiss, if anything, before this thing goes to trial. Coming up next with this trial will be getting the depositions, which means Taylor Swift, clear your schedule. You're going to be on camera, probably, right? They're going to depose her along with every other party within this mess. So stay tuned for that. All right, so as you guys know, we've been talking a lot about the China tariffs, right? There's this sort of a massive rise in China, basically unifying everyone outside of the United States, right? China's having this resurgence. Canada's having a resurgence. China's doing trade with Vietnam. The European Union is tightening up their trade. Basically, everybody is finding ways to trade with each other outside of the U.S. because of these crazy tariffs. These tariffs that have led to nothing. China is now buying billions of dollars of soy from Brazil, leaving out American farmers. And by the way, for those that think this is really political, like left versus right, it doesn't have to be. I live in Tennessee. I'm from a rural farming town in New England. I lived for a decade in California, which is where the world's farms exist. Most of the world's agriculture comes out of California. So I'm pro-farmer. It just sucks because, a lot of times the government has to subsidize farmers, and we call that socialism, right? And it's not. It's a social program, which means all of our taxes pooled together help out people. They help out farmers. They help out people that might not have access to education or live in food deserts to get the right food they need, right? It's how we help each other, right? Some of us do better than others, and we all help each other. And then the ultra-rich end up shooting Dick-shaped rockets into the space, right? But the point is that this trade war has really made it so that China has unearthed this sleeping dragon where they're now letting the world know how much business they do. Boss bitch stuff happening. So the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt was wearing this red and black lace dress. The dress available on Chinese websites. So they're basically letting people know, even though you say you don't need China, you're wearing clothes made in China. And of course, all the merchandise that comes out of the Make America Great hats, it's all made in China. It's like, by all means, if you want to make legislation to bring it back into the U.S., be the change you want to see in the world. Start, there are hat companies that you can get those hats embroidered in the U.S., so start doing that. While the trade war between the U.S. and China deepens, social media has become a battlefield with the Chinese and their supporters slamming one blow after the other on the U.S. The recent attack involved White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt, as social media users spotted her wearing a dress apparently manufactured in China. So again, you're going to keep seeing a lot of stories like that. Let's go over to Ukraine. All of this tariff talk, and we haven't discussed this war in Ukraine. Make no mistake about it. The Russian government, or the Russian military, invaded Ukraine, several years ago now. And the Russians are responsible for the war going on this long, right? Ukraine has fought to the death. Zelensky hasn't retreated. The president, he's basically begged the world to help him out. And certain people in our country have said, oh, why are we giving all of this money and resources to Ukraine? When in fact, the money we were giving was to our defense contractors to build new equipment, and we were basically giving them our hand-me-downs, right? But now Donald Trump responds to Zelensky's offer, president of Ukraine's offer to buy equipment, basically saying, all right, if you're not going to give us money, fine, we'll buy it. Here's what he has to say. This is insanity. Have a listen.
Have you spoken to President Zelensky, sir, about his offer to purchase more Patriot missile batteries?
Oh, I don't know. He's always looking to purchase missiles. He's against. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war, right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size, and then hope that people give you some missiles.
So there is so much wrong with that 19 seconds. One, the Ukrainians did not start the war; they were invaded. Two, he's explicitly saying, you don't have to give us the missiles. We want to buy them. So this is just absolutely insane. The fact that Donald Trump can criticize Zelensky, a national hero for his country, standing up against a much bigger army and fighting to the death with his country. The fact that he can criticize Zelensky, and they criticize him for not wearing a suit and tie, even though he says he's not going to wear, suit and tie during wartime. And then have the president of El Salvador come in, also not wearing a suit and tie, looking like he's going to, the disco, wearing this all black kind of tight fitted outfit. The fact that he's linking up with some of these super authoritarian guys and rejecting our allies is extremely problematic, don't you think? So what's going on in our country, right? There is a massive, massive uprising of resistance happening across the country, not just in places you would expect. Sure, AOC and Bernie Sanders spoke at Coachella, they spoke in Los Angeles, but they're also speaking in places that are called ruby red districts, that being Republican, deep and dark Republican states, including Iowa, a state that Trump won by 20 points. So here, I'm going to play several clips of AOC speaking yesterday at a sold-out arena of 12,000 people, where she talked about the fact that she's not taking money and she's not doing the bidding of the wealthy. It's called Fight Oligarchy. It's about fighting the ultra-rich people that have their money tied up in the government and using that money as a marionette string to get senators and politicians to kind of do whatever they say. Have a listen to this.
The power of big money. And that is why, even as a waitress with a long shot campaign for Congress, I decided right then and there that I would never take money from lobbyists and corporations, and I never will.
So she talks about the fact that she can't be bought. She talks about the fact that while her opponent was spending millions and raising millions, she didn't take that bait. And she's rare. It's very rare right now due to previous rulings, Citizens United. This idea that corporations can give you money as if they're citizens is insane, and it's led to boatloads of corruption. And the fact that she's able to show a blueprint for not taking that money is really impressive. And I said this on the earlier podcast, and I want to reiterate this as I hold my hand up. I will never again in my lifetime vote for a candidate to any political office that takes super PAC money or money from lobbyist groups or big business, dark money. I won't do it. It's done. I'd rather see the thing burn itself to the ground. And people will say, well, Dave, but what if you have to take money from one side versus take it from the other? It's all the same side. And this is the problem we have with democracy right now, is that so many people are angry with the Democrats because there's corporate Democrats that aren't fighting for the basic things we deserve. Universal health care. And they're not fighting for, and they're supporting wars because their money's tied up in the military industrial complex. I will only, and again, This is if you're like a true blood Republican, you can do the same thing. You can also take the pledge. So share this reel with your people and say, if we can't overturn this crazy law, Citizens United, at the very least, what we can do is each pledge and petition to say, we're not going to do it. So here's your chance. You got a whole year and a half before the next midterm to figure it the F out. We're not taking money from, or we're not going to vote for candidates who take money from these big interest groups. It's not for the people. And the only way to do that is to vote out those that do.
The day that the announcement went out that I was named to this committee, our phones rang off the hook and our inboxes were flooded by every corporate lobbyist under the sun who suddenly wanted to be my best friend. But you know what, Boise? Because of your support, because of you all showing up, because you allow me to not take a dime in corporate money, you free me to say no. And we can free others to say no too. We have to free others to say no too.
So now's your chance. Say no. Don't ever vote again for anybody who takes corporate money. Just make that pledge. While people are buying the dip when the stock market crashes, while senators are making ungodly amounts of money, and again, it goes across the aisle, whether you're on the right, Dan Crenshaw, or on the left, Nancy Pelosi, it doesn't matter. For those that are out there running for office, I think if we can't make this a law, we need to live in a world where you don't trade individual stocks. None of this, I put it in some fiduciary group and they make all the decisions for me. No, you sink or swim with a mutual fund like the S&P 500, right? That's it. That way you're not tied to any specific interest. Just do what you can to make the country a stronger place and your stocks will go up. And that's the sort of world I want to live in with our political leaders. Yesterday, Donald Trump spoke to the El Salvadorian president, and on a hot mic, he was caught where he said he wanted to build 5 more prisons in El Salvador and plans to, get rid of American citizens that have committed violent crimes. Here's what we have as a response. Again, is this acceptable? Do we believe that this will be prevented? Have a listen.
Homegrown criminals, as he called them, which is again how he defines them, which is an important point, could be sent to jail in El Salvador. And look, we can all agree that there are some dangerous criminals in our country, but this is clearly a step, at least as I heard it, much further. And it sounded to me like he was leaving the door open to deport American citizens for any range of reasons. Yes, maybe they committed crimes. Maybe it's people he doesn't like. Well, how did you hear his comments?
Well, to be clear, it can't happen, and we will never allow it to happen. And it's also unclear whether Donald Trump sometimes says these things to distract the American people from the fact that he's failing in a wide variety of areas, including as it relates to the economy.
Yeah, and this is what's important, right, is we have to remember there's a multifaceted sort of war breaking out in our country, civil war of ideology. But we need to remember that the tariffs are a terrible idea. It's sinking the stock market, and it's making, already, even if they don't go any further, it's already led to billions of dollars lost to other countries deciding not to trade with us. But this idea that we aren't going to allow Americans to be deported, sure, but the only way we live up to that is if we don't allow those that were deported illegally to be brought back. And here we have the senator from Maryland, Chris Van Hollen, saying he is prepared to go to El Salvador and fight for the return of the men that have been mistakenly sent there.
Requested this meeting with President Bukele while he's in D.C. Is the meeting set? Have you heard back?
Kate, it's good to be with you. I did request it. I've not heard back from the president of El Salvador. And as I said in that letter, if I don't hear from him and Abrego Garcia is not quickly returned, I do intend to go to El Salvador this week to show solidarity with his family. As you indicated, the Trump administration itself has admitted that he was abducted and sent to this prison in error. and he should get his due process.
There it is. He should get his and that's what it comes down to, right? Is due process. We need to live in a country where we go back to celebrating that due process, which we're going to end on hearing what Fox News has to say about due process. But here's a man who didn't receive due process. ICE agents tackle Venezuelan immigrant inside a New Hampshire courthouse after arriving for his hearing. I'm going to play this. It's chilling. So what we have here, and by the way, this innocent man got run over in the process. So agents approached, and this was a guy, a Venezuelan immigrant, who was doing the right things. He was at the courthouse because he was going to meet there and go through the proper channels. Now we have these agents here. There's an old man. He's about to get run over, right? You can see this old man. He looks like Santa Claus. He's about to get run over by these guys. But these agents are in the elevator and they're laughing and having fun. And then as this Venezuelan's about to come out, they say, hey, come talk to us. And he's like, you know what? I don't think so. He's got his papers in his hand. He's smiling. His whole life just changed in this moment because he went from going, I'm assuming getting a hearing with a judge as to why he can lawfully come into our country, which is what everyone said they wanted, right? We just want due process. We want immigration to be handled the right way. And then we have these ICE agents saying, no, you're coming with us. Are you so-and-so? And then he flees. And as we watch him flee, you're going to see the other man, the elderly man, get run over. So here's a man in his cane, run over. It looks like both of his knees blew out right there. He's laying down. This guy looks like a Santa Claus, just happy to be there. And they are cuffing this man. This is happening across our country. And for every time this happens, there's 10 people watching. Those 10 people live in fear. And then they tell their people about the living in fear. And we no longer live in a free country the more we see this happening. This is, and those that are, trying to follow the letter by the law say, well, he was running away from them. Well, why were they there in the first place if he was legally going about his business to try to get in the country the right way? And what we're noticing is people can't even get it's hard enough to get in front of a judge to do it the right way. Now they're actively being taunted and chased after, even when that's the process they're going through. Here is Jessica Tarlov on Fox News saying, hey, look, Republicans, do you want due process or not? It's up to you guys to tell us that this is a party that usually defends the Constitution, right? They say, you got to pull my gun from my cold, dead hands, right? Defending the Second Amendment. And well, where are we defending due process, the fabric of our democracy? Have a listen.
Okay,
I'm
and
not
how about
me
the
on this.
apartments?
I'm just saying, if you don't believe in due process anymore, then be honest about it, because that's what's going on here.
The only due process I believe in is the legal way to enter this country.
But claiming asylum is legal.
Yeah, well, only if you do the legal process.
But they
you
tried,
don't come
and then
illegally.
they're being disappeared from their court hearing.
They're being disappeared. Americans are being disappeared.
We're losing out on a lot of eligible.
Okay.
So then he makes a joke here, and it's absolutely ridiculous, when you call these things out and people say, no, and again, maybe it's people living in fear. I don't really know. But when it comes to fighting oligarchy, you got to speak truth to the power here. And we'll continue to do that. Please, keep sharing us with your friends and family. What I noticed yesterday on our new Instagram page, it's kind of new. Our Instagram page we've started to use is that we've received a ton of follows and shares yesterday. So I'm going to share it with you exactly how to find us. If you just search my name, Dave Neal, it should pop up. But it's called The Rush Hour with Dave Neal. This is our podcast only page. And yesterday, I think we received about 100 new follows and lots of people sharing these stories. It's a good bite-sized way to get the truth out there. Again, also follow us on Instagram at DNeals, and then I'm also on TikTok by the same username, DNeals. It's just so important as we continue to fight this fight to educate ourselves. I truly believe the more people know about the truth of what's going on, the more they're willing to speak up against it. It's just there's so much misinformation out there and gaslighting happening that we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page. I do think in one way or another, this might sound naive, but I do think this is going to be the thing that unifies the majority of our country, and we come together and remember how to celebrate democracy. Remember celebrating it by really defining what it is and making sure we don't budge an inch. I'll be back in the morning. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.